The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
After the Sabbath, and towards dawn on the first day of the week, Mary of Magdala and the other Mary went to visit the sepulchre. And all at once there was a violent earthquake, for the angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, came and rolled away the stone and sat on it. His face was like lightning, his robe white as snow. The guards were so shaken, so frightened of him, that they were like dead men. But the angel spoke, and he said to the women, "There is no need for you to be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, as he said he would. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples. He has risen from the dead, and now is going before you to Galilee. It is there you will see him. Now I have told you." Filled with awe and great joy, the women came quickly from the tomb and ran to tell the disciples. And there, coming to meet them, was Jesus. "Greetings," he said. And the women came up to him, and falling down before him, clasped his feet. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers that they must leave for Galilee. They will see me there." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This is a great and holy night. It is the high point of the liturgical year for us Christians, where we celebrate the most important part of our faith, Jesus' resurrection from the dead. But we are living in different times, I said many times before. And it's right that we acknowledge also the sadness of this night, the difference of this night. Because the reality is, this beautiful night, this great Easter Vigil, so many faithful believers around the world cannot participate in the same way. It is a great sadness for so many to not be able to receive Jesus in Holy Communion at this time. This is something that we shouldn't deny, that we need to recognize the sadness of that. And ask ourselves, how does this moment, this event of the resurrection, speak into that? How does it affect our lives now? Now and always, but perhaps we can recognize particularly now, when things are so different, when we have been shaken so much. What does the resurrection mean? What do the events of these past days mean? The words of the gospel that the angel speaks are so important, especially in these days. There is no need for you to be afraid. There is much fear, much anxiety, much uncertainty in these days. But God tells us, Jesus tells us constantly, do not be afraid. We are called to see things in a different way. We are faced with struggle, with tribulation. And we have the hope of Christ, of the risen Christ. The other words that we see in the gospel, which I think we can perhaps relate to, especially in these days. When the angel says the quite frightening words to the women who are searching for him, who have faith in him, he is not here. Perhaps these words can help us in these days when everything seems so uncertain, so different, when we are missing so much, when perhaps we can pass the church and realise that we can't enter. And there may be the appearance that Jesus is not with us, that he is not there. The truth is, when the angel says he is not there, there is not a frightening reason. The truth is, they are told this perhaps startling information because of the great news to come. What they would recognise, perhaps in a growing way over the next days, that he is risen, he is truly risen, and they would come to truly believe that. And this is the thing that would give them courage. This is the thing that would be able to help them think everything differently. And so it must be for us in these days. When all around us, perhaps we see, in differing degrees, panic and anxiety. That's not the way of Christians. Yes, we can be faced with terrible things, and we can acknowledge the sad state of affairs that we're living through in these days. But we have our minds, our hearts on something else, and something different. Recently I saw the film, a recent film, Paul, Apostle of Christ. It's a beautifully made film, and the thing that struck me, and I think especially watching it in these days, was that figure of St. Paul, who gives us so much. It's so rich because he sees things differently. Through all the struggles, through the time in jail, through the persecution, his mind was on something greater. And although this time there was great loss and great suffering, our hearts, our minds stay on the risen Christ, a God who promises us so much more. Cardinal Pell, a couple of days ago, wrote, it may have been yesterday, in the paper, a message for Easter. And he started by saying, I wish I had the exact words, but the idea that this suffering is not new, that all of us suffer, all of us go through terrible things. This time that we're living through now, everything being different, some things being quite frightening, perhaps, this is nothing new. We shouldn't be shocked by this. We shouldn't be shocked by when things are different, perhaps when we don't have the answer to everything, when things seem a little hopeless. We know much more than that, because we have our trust in God. Through the darkness, through the difficulties, we reach out, we trust in a God who even conquers death. This is the message of this night, that there is nothing that we can't overcome with our faith in Christ. Christ, we can do all things in Christ. Nothing is impossible to God. The great symbol of this night is the candle. We enter the darkened church. That symbol that Christ, even amidst the darkness, even this one flame, can dispel all the darkness in the world. This is not just an idea that we have, just a quaint idea that Christians have. No, this is the truth that we hold to. This is what we live our lives by. So no matter what evil, no matter what struggle, what grief we face in this world, and there will be many, We have a faith in a God who can dispel all that. A God who has the final answer. A God who can do all things if we trust in him. So especially in these days, in these Easter days when we celebrate, we can celebrate well despite the circumstances we are living through. Because the reward we have is greater. The promise that Christ gives is greater than all the things that this world can throw at us. So let this hope that Christ gives us, let it encourage each other with it. Let us support each other with the hope that Christ is always near, that he's always there to suffer through all the struggles of this life with us, and that we know the end. We believe in the risen Christ.